As we continue and give this guy a round of applause, a big Mark Thompson Show welcome for the former senior correspondent at ABC News, longtime White House correspondent as well, Jim Avila. Now Jim, the award-winning correspondent, does a weekly column for Barrett News Media. It's on politics and media. And, you know, Jim, your latest is so timely because as more and more enter the political sphere looking for top-of-ticket victory, that is the presidential race, both on the GOP side, and let's face it, some rumblings on the Democratic side too, but certainly the crowded field is on the GOP side. You, in your column, point out the ways to push back against the talking points to which it seems all of these politicians default. It actually is called, Jim's column is called A Journalist's Guide in Pushing Back Against Asinine Talking Points. So, Jim, take us through it.
Well, first of all, good morning, and I can't take responsibility for the headline. I didn't use the word asinine, but it seems appropriate. The idea for this column came to me.
Wait a minute, stop. What is this, Albert? What is the problem with Jim's frog sound? Is that those the headsets, you think?
It happened last week too, and he went away and came back and it fixed.
With the headset, it's okay. I'm wondering if it's the Bluetooth. The Bluetooth sounds good actually, but the frog sound is a bit distracting. You want to go off for a second and come back. Albert, I blame you. I don't know why.
Albert, thank you.
I don't know why, Albert, we can't get these people on without let's face it.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Albert is telling me that he's fine before we go on, and then we go on, and it starts frogging again. So you're fine until we go on, and then, of course, there's the issue. He's handsome as ever, which works, and Jim's information is so good, but we'd like to get him cleanly on. It is true, though, if you watch, the only guy in the Republican field, as Jim comes back on, who doesn't seem to default to almost memorized talking points, the only yeah, we hear you, is the only guy who doesn't default to those memorized talking points. Okay, can we just leave him in thank you. Is Chris Christie. Chris Christie is the most media savvy and most authentic speaker in the GOP field, without question, in my judgment. That doesn't mean he's going to win. He's had a lot of practice with, being on ABC News every week, which I had issues with. But apart from that, they default to these talking points. Pence does with almost a kind of as though he's reading from a hymnal. Jim, what is your, you didn't like the word asinine in the headline? Is that what you were kind of saying?
Well, I mean, it wasn't my word. The headline.
Asinine talking points, but they do default to these talking points. So how do you cover them when they're going to those places?
So this came to me to talk about or to write about on Sunday morning when I was watching Meet the Press, and Pence was interviewed by our friend Chuck Todd, who would faint if he actually asked a follow-up question that criticized or pushed back. He did a couple times, but so I went through that and listened to that interview, and then almost every other interview that I saw, the Republicans said the same thing. And the reason why I'm picking on the Republicans, besides the fact that they're leading us down the road of destruction, is that right now, because Biden has ordered Democrats not to talk about this indictment, and they haven't, and he and his administration is not talking about it. The ones who are talking about are Republicans, and they have a set of talking points. And so in this article, I go through each of these talking points and give, it took me an hour and a half to go through all their talking points and find the rebuttals. And this is what journalists who are going to interview these people, and you're going to interview them. That's all they have to do is get some blue cards out, write down, what their talking point is, and shuffle to that talking point. And while they're making it, then say, hey, why the big one, of course, is what about Hillary? What about ism? Why wasn't Hillary? Well, I provide in this article the quote from the Inspector General's office, which says that there was no evidence that she intentionally attempted to do the same thing as Trump. Then the fact that James Comey also came out and said that after ruining the election for her, but eventually they came out and said, well, there's nothing there, and I'm not going to do it. Same thing with Hunter Biden. Of course, we know now today. I mean, I wrote this yesterday, and it came out this morning. We know that they say, what about Hunter Biden? Well, Hunter Biden was being investigated by a Republican attorney, a U.S. attorney appointed in the years of Trump. Also, in the Hillary case, they had 4 years under Bill Barr and the other U.S. attorney, the other attorney general under Trump, to prosecute her. They never did. They didn't prosecute her. So, there are pushbacks to every one of these things, and I invite you to take a look at that. And that's the problem with the media today. In most cases, is that they get blown away by the fire hose of disinformation and are not prepared to say stop and let's go. Now, Brett Baer did that yesterday on Fox, which was surprising.
That was extraordinary. In fact, Kim, can you run a little bit of that? I wanted to get Jim's take. We just grabbed a little bit off of
Sure.
Morning Joe this morning, but we just wanted a little run with Trump interviewed by Brett Baer, and I thought it was interesting for just the reasons that Jim is saying, that this guy, and let's face it, Baer, and it's been revealed in sworn testimony, didn't want to call the election for Trump because he was worried for Biden because he was worried about losing the Trump supporters from the Fox platform, from Fox News Channel. So this is a guy who is in the tank for Trump.
He had a big hissy fit on the night that Fox called the race first in Arizona. And
right.
He wrote emails that were revealed, as you referred to, that were revealed in the lawsuit that showed that he was very angry about it and wanted it to stop.
Exactly. So here's a bit of him interviewing this guy who he really went to the mat for to try to, as we say, protect him on election night. Here's a little bit of it from this morning. Go ahead.
I have every right to have those boxes. This is purely a Presidential Records Act. This is not a criminal thing. In fact, the New York Times of all had a story just the other day that the only way NARA could ever get this back would be please, could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
Because they have no, we
they
were
did
talking.
Ask for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
can you
them
give the documents back?
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
Which
back.
they've never done before.
Right. Well, why not just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but according to the indictment, you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things, golf shirts, clothing, pants, shoes. There were many things. I would say much more, not that I know of, but everything was declassified.
According to the indictment, you were here at Bedminster on July 21st, 2021, after you're no longer president, and you were recorded saying that you had a document detailing a plan of attack on another country that was prepared by the U.S. military for you when you were president, the Iran attack plan. You remember that?
Ready?
You were recorded.
It wasn't a document.
Okay.
I had lots of paper. I had copies of newspaper articles. I had copies of magazines.
I know. This is specifically a quote. You're quoted on the recording saying the document was secret, adding that you could have declassified it while you were president, but, quote, now I can't. You know, this is still secret, highly confidential. And the indictment cites the recording and the testimony from people in the room saying you showed it to people there that day. So you say on this on tape,
it says just the opposite,
that you can't declassify it. So why have it?
When I said that I couldn't declassify it now, that's because I wasn't president. I never made any bones about that. When I'm not president, I can't declassify.
And that's what you said. You didn't declassify it.
I said no. I said I couldn't.
But that
wasn't a document, Brett. There was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else talking about Iran and other things. and it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se. There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories, and articles.
He really does that. Thank you. He really does. Thanks to Morning Joe for that. He really does throw everything up against the wall to see what sticks on that one. They're not documents. It was just newspaper articles. My golf shirts are interspersed. You don't see that as a damning thing. That's how insecure these documents were. They're being thrown in with your laundry. Go ahead, Jim.
The two big things in that for me, Mark, are number one, he was busy. He was on the golf course every freaking day. You know pictures of him on the golf course all the time. So I get a subpoena from the U.S. attorney, from the special counsel, tells me I need to turn over these documents. Okay, I'm going to go play golf. I'll talk to you later. No, that doesn't happen. You get a subpoena from the government on something this serious. You kind of go to work on that. And so that was, that's easily just blown away. Number two, as you point out, the other damaging thing is you have these classified documents of nuclear secrets in a box with your golf shirts and your golf hats and memorabilia. That just shows what the total disregard for the lives of people who are in our service, either spying around the world or military plans. It's just nuts. Every time he opens his mouth, his attorneys must be banging their head against the wall. I mean,
everything he said there can be, and that can be used in court, right? Everything he said there.
Absolutely. Everything.
It's interesting.
He says publicly.
This is to kind of your piece, and then we'll move on. You're going to be back with us on Friday. But Randy says Bear did a pretty good job as a special prosecutor in that interview. Did you feel that Bear was out of line there, or did you feel that Bear did an admirable job trying to hold Trump to the facts?
I thought he did a pretty good job in this case, and that it was unusual. That's probably why it's getting as much attention as it is, because it was on Fox. But maybe Fox learned a little bit of a lesson that they can't broadcast lies without it being detrimental to them financially. They lost those millions and millions of dollars, and maybe that has gotten through. There are others who do a good job. I've always continued to say that George Stephanopoulos on Sundays, when he's on, and Martha does well too, Martha Raddatz, those two do push back and they interrupt and they say, wait a minute, that's not true. And then they have the facts ready to go. And George has been doing it for years with Trump and with his interviews, but it's few and far between. And right now it's very important because of it's the campaign, and all of these Republican candidates are trying not to hurt him, trying not to hurt the 30% or actually in the Republican Party, the 60 to 70% of his followers, and they need to kind of echo these talking points that are so easy to refute because we know what they're going to be. We've heard them over and over. Be ready. That's what I'm saying.
The one thing I would say, Jim, that makes it particularly difficult these days, and I don't think the press is used to encountering someone like Trump, is the fire hose of not only talking points, but lies. I mean, you got to be ready. There is a lot of stuff. Even in the Bear interview, he's just making stuff up, Presidential Records Act. And if you're a Trumpy or a wannabe Trump supporter, you go, yeah, Presidential Records Act. Whatever the guy said. Yeah, Presidential Records Act.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
even though the agency that runs the Presidential Records Act has said that he's not interpreting it correctly.
Of course not. He's just naming stuff, but it works. Right. And he's found it works well enough to have propelled him to the presidency once. The new column is in Barrett Media from Jim Avila. You can find him there once a week. We'll post a link to it in the description of this episode. And,
and it's on my Twitter feed too, Mark, Jim Avila ABC on Twitter.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. Love our visits, and we look forward to Friday. Jim Avila, everybody. Yeah. Hi, Jim. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.